Why war won't work with Gen Z?
You know, they say every couple of generations, one generation is bound to experience the most life-changing events in history.
Definitely.
And so far, it's looking like Gen Z is fitting the boot. Okay, maybe.
No. You don't remember September 11th. I do. We had September 11th. We had Y2K. We had the internet. There was the president getting his dick sucked. That was a pretty big deal. The Berlin Wall fell in 1989. No. Don't even say that.
That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but can you blame me after all the things we've had? Most of us were born around the time or after one of the most devastating terror attacks in modern times happened. We saw our parents trying to keep their sanity during the 2008 financial crisis. As soon as we stepped out into the real world as adults, everything decided to shut down because of COVID in 2025.
Okay, all right, I give it to him. Gen Z did get cooked by COVID. Y'all did get cooked by COVID, and like millennials, like I'm, you know, fucking 34, right? And so I had already been out doing shit with people for 10 years before COVID, right? And so they did get spawn camped on COVID.
And now to add the cherry on top, we may be running back to draft and being put on the warfield. Excuse me, I meant you guys may be running back to draft and on the warfield. I just found out I'm highly on the spectrum, so unfortunately that means I can't qualify.
You can be transsexual.
But good luck, future soldiers. I'll give y'all each a high five and you can have fun on the battlefield. It's crazy how Gen Z is kind of running back what millennials had. Because millennials had a war growing up with a terrible economy and had to worry about if they could even afford a house. But man, at least they had good music coming out. What the f do we have for these turmoil?
Dude, I remember me and Cody and Jeff listening to this song. Oh my God. Listen to this song driving around Riverside in Austin.
I don't think I really have to explain too much what's going on. If you don't keep up with the news, you've probably seen the memes already about hitting 360 no-scopes on the battlefield. But the United States of America officially got involved with the Israel and Iran conflict and decided to drop 3 bombs on what they say is their nuclear sites. Game theory. Alright, I'm sorry. I feel like I need to take these matters more serious. Now, I'm not going to say too much of my personal opinion on it and break this down like it's a 5-hour political podcast. I usually say and talk about things more on stream, so definitely go follow me on there in the second channel. But it's not surprising that everyone is scared online and doesn't know what's gonna happen. You know, in the past, you usually didn't have a president tweeting that they bombed a country
and then congratulating themselves and asking for a Nobel Peace Prize all within 24 hours.
PNG photo of the American flag right after. This is definitely the worst time to be the ripe age of 18 to 25 because we going first if the draft happens.
I think it's the opposite. I think Trump is so fucking crazy that there's no way somebody would want to start a war with him. He's so unpredictable and so crazy, nobody wants to fuck with him. Because they don't know what he's going to do.
Gen Z has got to be the worst generation for them to try and get on the war train with them. And this isn't even mentioning about all the femboys and furries we got. Not even talking about how half of us are either morbidly...
Nah, this shit's fake. This shit's fake. He'd be rolling. Now, if this was downhill, he would be winning.
One of the main reasons I think war wouldn't work with Gen Z is because the propaganda age of America is officially dead. And
no, it's not. And I think that, like, I see what he's saying. I get what he's saying. But at the same time, to say that the propaganda age is dead, has it ever occurred to you that maybe the propaganda age is so good now that you don't realize that you're in it?
Any country that has some form of free press is absolutely cooked. The reason why people back then were so patriotic and would do anything to be in the army in war times, you had kids who were in high school lying about their age so they could serve in the army, was because so many people trusted what the politicians said and how the media said things.
He a young guy. I get it, right? I get it. This is my take. Like, I'm probably about like 10 years older than him. I don't think that's really true. I can see why he thinks that, because, like, I think that a lot of guys my age probably have a romanticized viewpoint of politics from before we were, like, really adults. But the reality is that this has always been the case. And I think, honestly, the real reason why a lot of guys went to war after 9/11 is because we got attacked, right? We got attacked. And it was from an ideology that was so diametrically opposed to America that it was able to mobilize the entire country. Like, the entire country after 9/11 turned into Helldivers 2. It turned into Super Earth. It was insane to see it happen.
Sit on podiums and do cool speeches about us fighting for our democracy and freedom. And now we look back at certain conflicts America got in. And
you've got to keep in mind that, like, my dad talked to me about this a little bit because, Like, Ronald Reagan was also seen as a joke whenever he first ran for president because he was also a former actor. And so people didn't take him seriously either. Hyper simplistic view from this guy? It's not simplistic. He's a young guy. He's giving his perspective. I'm giving my perspective as an older guy. And there's no hate at all. Like, this is the way that he sees things. There's nothing wrong with this at all.
Almost nobody nowadays thinks the Vietnam War was something America needed to get involved in.
They did at the beginning because of the Gulf of Tonkin, which was turned out to be a false flag. And, you know, that's never happened before. And anyway, there was that, and I think that there was one other thing that happened as well. But the real turning point, according to my dad, who, you know, my dad was in the Vietnam War, is that, you know, he said that, like, the big turning point was, like, Walter Cronkite, you know, basically saying, like, what the fuck are we doing in the war? I've always had the viewpoint, like, I think a millennial, like, version of his take on politicians is that the media used to be unbiased. I don't think that the media was ever unbiased. I just think that now with the internet, we have the tools to triangulate the lies.
Superpower for military and all things. Lost to that were setting up Looney Tune ad traps in the ground.
Oh, bear trap.
Also, the Iraq War is universally seen as a dumb war that shouldn't have happened by people now. Like, even Trump and Obama agree on that. That's probably the only thing they agree on.
And also, the Iraq War was just funded. I think that the Iraq War, like everything after the initial response to September 11th, was the military-industrial complex at peak performance. Like, there's a reason why Metal Gear Solid got so popular after that.
These worked though because it was so much easier to push propaganda in the past. Like in the Vietnam War, they were playing
I'm a real big fan of Hassan.
Oh, how did that happen? Okay, anyway, I don't know what that was. I was like, wait, where's Nick? I completely disagree with this. And I think that, like, my opinion is that this is the same viewpoint that I think that a lot of us had whenever we first got on the internet and we first, like, became adults. We were like, okay, propaganda's over now. But the reality is that propaganda has changed. And I think the best example that you can use for a lot of millennials is the kid joking. No, he's just giving his opinion on it. There's nothing wrong with that. Is like, remember what happened after Occupy Wall Street? I think Occupy Wall Street was the last genuine grassroots campaign against genuine oligarchy in America. And right after Occupy Wall Street is when all of the identity politics got turned up to 11. And I think the reason why is because I think this was a top-down directive. And this makes me sound maybe like a conspiracy theorist, but I think that it's true. I think it was a top-down directive that was done intentionally in order to keep people distracted from, you know, again, like these people, they don't care if you're white or black or anything, or a woman or anything like that. These are people that are like living in luxury private planes. They view all of you as just like second-class citizens. It doesn't matter what your skin color is. Everybody is like that to them. And I think that's the most noteworthy tonal shift that's happened. And I think another great example of modern propaganda is COVID. I think the way COVID was handled is probably the best example that propaganda is in full swing. And propaganda will always be effective. The reason why propaganda will always be effective is because people want to believe what they agree with. So you're working against a person's biases, which are almost impossible to overcome.
War, they were playing TV ads saying this was all about freedom and nothing else. Taking ads out the newspaper saying the only way to be a man is by getting drafted to war. And at the time before social media, everyone basically believed it because that's all. Well,
no, that's not true. That was what they thought in Sparta. That's what they thought in Greece. That's what they thought in the Ottoman Empire, probably. I don't know enough about them to be sure about that. That's what they thought in like probably ancient China. That's what they thought in feudal Japan. Like the entire idea of a men's initiation ritual being somewhat violent and sometimes combat oriented is something that is a tale as old as time.
During the Iraq War, though, that's when you first started seeing people actually start speaking up about things.
Yes.
Saying, hey, maybe going into a country and murdering innocent civilians and committing war crimes isn't a good thing.
That wasn't the reason why people were mad. The reason why they were mad is because, I mean, we helped Saddam Hussein. Like, we worked with him in some cases. So, like, I remember, like, Saddam Hussein was almost surprised that we attacked him. Also, Saddam Hussein, any war crime that, like, you know, Saddam Hussein had a mustache the way he did as a way of honoring Stalin, right? I mean, the dude was fucking insane. Like, if you think anything that the U.S. does, at least officially, is bad, you should look at what Saddam Hussein did. That dude was nuts. Like, he was an Old Testament kind of guy, okay?
The media was still in its baby phases at the time it was going on, so there was still a lot of enthusiasm for it. But now with Gen Z, we grew up in the most free era of social media. No one would go because everyone would know it would be another lie that the government is doing. And the military's numbers have already been dropping more than ever. People have been making fun of it.
This was true, but it's not true anymore. Now, during Biden, military enlistment was extremely low, but now it's actually gone up massively. It turns out that when you make the leader of the military a guy that works out, that is, you know, in shape, and that has tattoos of the Crusades on his arms, military enlistment goes up. I wonder why. Military service is very much a masculine thing. Obviously, women participate in the military, and they can be valuable parts of the military. But it is primarily a masculine role. And so when you have masculine role models, and I think that Trump and, you know, Pete Hegseth, etc., and that whole group is much more masculine coded than Biden and Kamala Harris. Absolutely, it's not even a question.
Because they be trying to recruit soldiers anywhere they can now. They've been seen at anime cons. They got whole Twitch channels now. They even got them at NBA games now. I'm not gonna lie, if I'm watching my glorious king LeBron putting up 40 points and a military sergeant comes up to me like, "Hey son, this game sure is great, right? Have you ever thought of the game of
Well, this is all... No. You want to know where they're really recruiting at? Working class high schools. How many of y'all had the Marines there, and they had the pull-up bar, and they were like, son, do you think you can do 10 pull-ups?
Got my face, bro. I'm watching LeBron. Even if there was a chance
it was true
when we were rightfully defending ourselves from evil, the U.S. government has lost so much trust in the public.
This is a great point that he's bringing up, and I think he's completely right about this. And I think this speech is probably one of the most mask-off moments for people to realize how much the American government is bought and paid for by foreign interests, and in this case, primarily Israel. These people were standing and clapping more than a seal at SeaWorld. It was embarrassing.
I don't know a single man I've asked in Gen Z that said they would actually go if they got drafted. Most would rather just take...
Yeah, that's what they say. But then after they go to jail for not going to the draft, do you really think that they just wouldn't go? Like, you don't get a choice. Like, this is the thing. I think it's a lot of young people believe this. Do you really think that you're the first generation to ever not want to go to a war? Come on.
And looking at it in the long run, it's not even that bad. It's 5 years in prison max if you don't go. So it's either you get 5 years max in prison for not going and stay alive, or go and potentially get obliterated on the battlefield by a missile straight to the head. Hey man, I don't know about y'all, but I'm throwing a party in that prison for every day we not in the warfield. I got a friend that served in the military for a couple of years, and even he said nowadays he'd rather take the prison time. Also, the younger generation has realized we don't want to fight a war.
I had a friend who was injured in the military for something that was completely unnecessary, and now he's a disabled vet. And so I think that this viewpoint and this sentiment's very accurate.
Like, why don't y'all fight it yourselves? Why I gotta grab the military equipment while you sit on a plane watching from above drinking champagne? They should host a boxing match every year for world leaders, and whoever wins, their country gets the most benefits for that year. Looking at our leader for now, though.
Who would win that? Maybe Joseph Kony.
Yeah, we might be losing for this. Also, growing up in this age, we've gotten exposed to how
you're probably right.
These war injuries leave
people.
Even though this right here might be the sole reason Gen Z would never join in. There's always a chance you could end up with one of those. People in war lose body parts I didn't even know was possible to lose. The day I'm at war and they try to obliterate my meat, the whole place is getting torn down. They should have tried to stop those images from coming out, because who the hell would want to potentially get involved in a war after seeing pictures like that? And it's crazy because
I think you really would be surprised at how fast people can publicly turn and be warlike. It was really surprising. So, like, a great example of this is Pearl Harbor. It's actually incredibly easy to manufacture consent from the public to go into a war. It is. And the moment that you think that it's not easy is the moment that you are now susceptible to it becoming even easier.
happen at any moment to you on the warfield. One day you're chilling in the breezy weather of Iraq and you look to the right and see a man with 20 cc's of C4 strapped to his chest running to you at Usain Bolt speed. And now you end up looking like Two-Face back at home. I'm not sitting here and saying all of America's wars were unjustified though. Like, I always appreciate the veterans out there who fought, because most of the time, even if the war ended up being unjustified, a lot joined to fight for justified reasons. And what I think that's a W opinion. Is that, like, I respect veterans, but I don't always respect the reasons they're veterans, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not a big fan of, you know, the Iraq War, but if some guy's an Iraq veteran, you know, respect for that. And also for World War II, America was justified in a lot, like, let's be real, mainly making sure Adolf didn't end up owning the world. Keep in mind, so Adolf Hitler actually had a tremendous amount of support from people in America. It was a massive amount. And in fact, if you look at JFK, for example, JFK, the president, said positive things about Hitler. So Hitler being seen as a universal evil in America is actually not true. Henry Ford, historically, I think is probably another great example of that too. Obviously, I'm oversimplifying this, so like a couple of details might be a little bit off. But basically, after World War I, America had a very strong isolationist policy. It's kind of similar to how we are now, because we were fatigued from World War I, because so many people came back from, at least at that time, it's PTSD now, but back then it was shell shock. And so we had a very, very isolationist perspective in America, and it didn't really change until Pearl Harbor happened. And again, like, I think that Pearl Harbor was a surprise attack on America, because Japanese dignitaries, I don't know if that's the correct word or not, were going to meet with FDR. You know, that was the president at the time, and he didn't meet with them because I don't know entirely about this, but my understanding is that a sneak attack would have galvanized the American public in order to engage in World War II, because the government thought that, you know, like Hitler was an imposing, and ambassadors, that's the correct word that I was using. Not really a surprise, yeah. But like that's it, FDR wanted to enter the war, because you have to keep in mind the war started, World War I started in 1939, and America joined the war in 1941. The invasion of Normandy, I think, was in 1944. So in a lot of cases, like Hitler owned gold himself by trying to go into Russia in the winter, trying to fight a war on two fronts, etc. And so America played a very big role in World War II, but to say that Americans all wanted to be involved in World War II, I don't think that's really true based off of what my historical understanding is. And the president we have now is totally not a liar, right?
One thing I can promise you this: I will always tell you the truth.
He don't even believe that himself. Do you see his face? He was probably holding back a laugh so hard in his mind. That's the thing that's most important.
Well, they all say that.
Having a person that the younger generation wholeheartedly trusts. It's a reason why a lot of dictatorships completely ban social media, because they can fully propaganda the younger generation to look up to the leader, and they're all gonna believe in them. Even having
that's true. He's right about that.
Someone that they trust is hard, but having someone that the younger generation doesn't trust, yeah, it's gonna be damn near impossible for the government to try to get us on the war train with.
So easy. It's so easy. And I think that by thinking that it's so hard, you let your guard down.
Your view on Trump, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that most of Gen Z does not have a good view on him. You take a room of 10 of us, and I would say at least 8 people are gonna say they don't like him. And look, like—
Not anymore. I actually think that a lot of younger people are becoming more conservative more quickly. And at least that's what trends show.
Like I've said in the past, I'm not even one of those that's a Trump hater 24/7 and spends all day writing hate articles on him. But if you truly think the younger generation would fully be behind him declaring a war on another country, you're delusional. Bro, we just had a protest around the whole country against what he's doing.
No, it's a very small amount of people. Trump also won the popular vote. I think that a lot of people like this and a lot of things like this, and consuming mainstream media creates a very one-dimensional perspective, is that if there were really that many people who were against what Trump was doing, he wouldn't have won the general election and won the popular vote. Trump, I think, has gotten more popular over time. Like, he's been building up momentum ever since 2015. Like, he's more popular now than he was whenever he was first president.
I don't know if I can trust the man leading the war that says this on stage.
Because they asked me what I do, and I said, I'm gonna bomb the out of them.
Imagine he forgot there was a couple of soldiers on the warfield and threw one right in the middle of the fight.
I gotta say that, what do you think Genghis Khan said? Really? What do you think that Saladin said? What do you think that Harry Truman said? Well, he said it twice, actually, in that circumstance. Yeah, every single time.
Another reason why the younger generation wouldn't be motivated to join in is because we really got nothing to look forward to and have no hope for an American dream. Our economy's still from COVID and inflation is still going on.
It's not fucked from COVID. It's fucked because companies exploited COVID. They use COVID as an excuse. It's not a reason.
Most of Gen Z ain't gonna get a house in their lifetime. At least back then, when you fought a war, you had those things to look forward to. You came back and could work a shift as a cashier and buy a house in 2 years.
Exactly. I think this is also a sentiment with older people too. And like older people also like have to deal with like student loan debt too also. And I think this is a very good point, is that the social contract that is made between a young person in a society and society itself has been violated and it's been broken. And I think a good example of that is that go to school, work hard, go to college, you're going to get a good job, you can afford a house, and you can have a good life. That social contract has been broken in America. That started, I think that it began in 2008. And also, like, the divergence really began in, like, the 1975, 1980 period. That's whenever you really saw productivity and wage labor, like, the wages that you got for your labor. That's whenever you really saw the divergence. But now, obviously, it's become much more pronounced.
Instead of that, you're gonna come back and have no work available to you, probably still be living with your parents. All the femcells on Twitter and TikTok are gonna be laughing at the men dying on the warfield. And don't count on the government to help you either after. It's so sad to me that there's people out there that served the country and helped keep it alive, only for them to end up homeless with no help from the government. In what world should homeless veterans even be a thing, bro? We spend $880 billion on the military a year. Everyone who served in war should be eating good and kicking back for the rest of their lives.
I think this is why I think people get so angry about like aid to migrants and aid to other countries when we don't have, like veterans in our country. Like, I'll tell you that, like, obviously I have a lot of friends that are veterans. Like, I mean, my dad, the only reason my dad wants to go to the VA in order to get disability is so he can fuck the VA out of money. He doesn't need the money. He would only do it out of the principle. I'm surprised he's not bringing this up, because he's a younger guy, so he's probably more in tune with this. But another really big reason why young people join the military is because of the GI Bill. Like, my dad used the GI Bill to go to college. I had a number of friends that went to war, or they joined the military. And this was during the Iraq War, and then, the following, indefinite length war on terror. By the way, that's the reason why they would go to those working class high schools, because those working class high schools were the places where the people couldn't afford to go to school. So if you weren't in top 10%, if your family didn't have a lot of money, if you couldn't apply for a scholarship, you would be able to go into there. And so you had a lot of people that did it for that reason too, as a way out. Yeah, and there's also, like, for example, like, we always think about the military as, like, shooting a gun and, like, killing terrorists or something. But there's also people who are in the military that are medics or they're mechanics. And those skills are translatable. Like, I had a friend who, like, one of his other jobs, he was infantry, he's a Marine, obviously. But, so of course he, like, saw a bit of combat, etc. Very, very minimal amount, but he did see some. But he was primarily a mechanic, and he got out of school, he got out of the military, and now he's a mechanic professionally.
The only reason why I would even join, to be honest, is the benefits. I just have to sit there and pray that a war doesn't actually happen. Because for real, I'd only want the free insurance and vacation. The warfield is a different conversation. I'm gonna have to take my prison time for that game. Anyways, that's gonna be it. For anyone in Gen Z that's actually worried about a draft in war, I'm gonna let you know right now, there's about a 95% chance no draft happens.
I think there is a nothing ever happens argument, but I don't think nothing ever happens because of young people not being willing to go to war. I think it's just simply because there's not really a reason. Like, with the amount of technology and tools, like, and resources that we have now, going to war with, like, troops on the ground, I think that's going to be seen in the same way that the cavalry was seen in World War I, as antiquated, vestigial, and just simply not useful anymore, and not effective.
Off half of our paycheck, if you live in the United States, goes to the military. We spend $880 billion a year on the military, and Iran spends a whopping $10 billion. Their whole military operation would get wiped in like 2 nanoseconds if they actually tried to attack civilians.
Like, that's why I never bought the entire idea of, oh, it takes 20 years to replace the Taliban with the Taliban. No, it takes 20 years for you to make $1 billion.
The true reason why we don't have free healthcare. The last thing they'd ever want to do is let all politicians put their political beliefs aside and let Congress come together and let Trump do whatever the he'd want to do in a war. It wouldn't matter if their allies got involved, which I don't think.
No, Trump will always do whatever the fuck he wants to in a war. Obama did it and Bush did it too. There's no precedent that prevents him from doing that. And certain things, I believe, in the Patriot Act specifically.
They would have so much more to lose with Iran, like, it wouldn't be worth it. Also, they wouldn't do it because I'm here. They know I don't play when I say leave us alone. Anyways, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. As always, I love you guys consensually. And until next time, I'm out.
I think it's really interesting to hear a perspective of a younger guy about this. Because I think that, like, his perspective in a lot of cases, like, I don't agree with a lot of the things that he's saying in this video. Well, anyway, I did like the video, and I want to hear... I know people disagreed with him, but I really appreciate young guys coming out here and giving their opinions. Even if it's something I might not always agree with.